Okay. We are live. Let's see what happens. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Let's
I
see.
need to get over to your channel here so I can see myself. Oh, I
I'm
can see
hoping it's
myself on
going.
this. See if you got it live on the channel here. So I don't know anything about StreamYard.
Mm, it should be up and live.
Oh, there it is.
Are we good?
Yeah, we got one live there. Let me give me just a minute to share this out. I had a couple people ask me to do that. So
Okay. Well, it doesn't look
um,
like it played any countdown or anything else, so that's fine.
looks like it just went live. Gotta mute it here on my end. Okay, Uncommon
Okay.
Belief is with us there in the chat.
Hello, Uncommon Belief. Welcome in, everybody. Sorry, this is the first live we've had, and I couldn't have anybody else other than my good friend Steve Stockton. Hi, Steve. How are you tonight?
I'm happy to be your guinea pig, Cisco.
Boy, we've had fun. So we ran through a lot of tech issues and we're up and ready to go. And I'd like to welcome everybody in. And hi, Uncommon Belief. Thank you so much and for coming in tonight. Thanks for all of Steve's fans that came over from missing persons and tell all the different, because you've got 13 past midnight, you've got ghost stories at midnight, you all kind of tell.
Oh gosh, yeah, missing persons mysteries. That's the big one. We are rolling up on
Yep.
100,000 subscribers, which is just incredible.
So cool.
That 100,000 people would show up to see me do anything unless it was jump off of something high.
Yeah, I know what you
But
mean.
having a lot of fun over there. Got some really good content going, and just I don't know. It works with the
Mhm.
writers that we have, and everybody loves my voice, and I love what I do. And Bill and I work good together. He's the other half of the channel, the
Hey to
creative half.
Bill. Hey Bill. Yeah, he's
And,
he's he's been really nice, and it's been gosh, man, let's take people back a minute if you don't mind. The first time I met Steve was, of course, the same way that a lot of you guys met Steve, and that was through his voice and through his stories. And a good friend, somebody I just love, Zariah Askath. I was actually on his show. I had written in a listener story, and I think it was maybe the Gettysburg story, one of them
I think it
on
was.
Halloween night. Yeah, Gettysburg, 150th anniversary, midnight, Halloween. I'm standing in the middle of the field and something wild happened. So I called and talked to Zariah, and then we talked a little bit after that. And when you get somebody like-minded, you're always one story after another. They all kind of daisy chain into each other. And he said, I got a friend here, Steve, that you have a lot in common with. Well, Steve and I talked on, I think it was a Sunday afternoon or something
It
like that.
was, and I think we started. It was in the afternoon for me, so 1 or 2 o'clock or something. And then by the time we finished, it was full dark. I think we talked for like 7 hours.
Yeah, at least we had a
Told
ball.
stories and shared experiences, and you'd lived places in Alabama where I'd been,
Hmm.
so we had stories from down there, and then you
Hmm.
had tales of New Jersey to regale me with that I just loved hearing. So
Hmm. So many, yeah, and it was a connection a lot there with, but it went deeper. We're both have a lot of Cherokee. I have Lenape and Cherokee and Scottish, and just so many similarities that our upbringing, kind of the way we, not so much our family units, but what we seem to experience. We were both really young kids to a more older adult parents. So we hung around with a lot of adults. We got to hear the stories. And that was the most intriguing thing, I
mm,
think, when you're sitting around with people and, you can kind of feel it out a little bit. You can say, have you ever, seen anything odd, or do you believe in ghosts? And you might get those haint stories is what we call them, or like
haints and boogers.
ants and booger under the bed, or the one that's gonna all those stories that kind of keep kids good at night, like the boogeyman or Spearfinger, or gosh, name them all, right? And it was amazing, the connection. And then I'd tell a story and then you'd click in, that reminds me of this, that reminds me of this, and we back and forth, back and forth. But it was absolutely amazing. It's really exciting when you get with somebody who gets it, and I think that's what a lot of our listeners, same thing. We started listening to podcasts and radio stories and coast to coast, and those old mystery stories that are just so good, like CBS Mysteries and stuff, just trying to
what was
unravel
it,
stuff.
CBS Radio Mystery Theater, something that came on. E.G. Marshall, one of the most wonderful voices ever.
And the creaky door.
Yeah.
And you just knew you were in for it, and right away you got into the voices and the things, which is one of the reasons I did the book the last time the way I did. It was just such a wonderful subject to be in, and there's so many different outshoots of it. It's like a spider web that keeps going, and I really believe a lot of it's all connected.
I think so.
Now, you and I also have an acquaintance, another one that we have so many people that we both kind of know and, talk to, and wonderful people in this whole genre, but Conflict. And you did a fantastic YouTube channel. If you're not on Conflict Radio, click onto their YouTube and get that. Lots of fantastic interviews there. And
I've been on there a few times. In fact, he's contacted me a couple times that I haven't been able to go on because it was such short notice. But I love being on there. He's got a lot of good stuff going on.
Yeah, he does, and the way and the depths of different things. He can go places I don't go. I just sit there and listen, because you're always learning something in this, or at least intrigued by something, and you want to learn more. Hello, Laura. How you doing, Laura Stevens? Good to see you, babe. Thank you for
Laura.
coming in. Thanks for coming in.
Glad to have you here.
Yeah, but he had asked you when you were on the last one, I believe, the book. Oh gosh, the book is doing great. The National Park Mysteries that you just did, and I believe you were on for that. And he asked you a very intriguing question, and I thought it was a good one. He said that if you were in the woods and a portal opened up, do you remember this?
Yes.
Okay. And he said, what would you do if you had a chance to go in? Maybe there was someone on the other side saying, come on, I can't promise you'll get back, but come on and see what's up. Would you go? Do you remember your answer?
I said, if I had Mulder with me, absolutely. I'd step right through it.
Just to see.
Just to see what's on the other side and to see if I could get back. What an adventure.
Right. Absolutely. And, I thought about it, and, I don't think I can honestly answer the question. I'd want to go, but then I think, like you said, all the things that were here, could I get back to those things? I think we'd all ask those questions, but that got me thinking, what if you stepped through one and you didn't have a choice?
Yeah. Like you didn't know until you're already through it. It's that old saying that those that truly know where the edge are the ones that have gone over it. So what if you found yourself having gone through a portal? Then what?
And we don't know what's on the other side. And
I think that's what happens sometimes when these people. I had a video go up today on missing persons and mysteries about a guy who was just walking along on a short trail, 3 miles. He'd been on it dozens of times, and he said he was kind of lost in his own head, wasn't paying real close attention. But suddenly there was no trail. He didn't know where he was at. Nothing looked familiar. He was lost in the woods 9 days. And when they did finally find him, he was within 2 miles of where he went missing and just right off the trail. So how does that happen? They've been in there searching for him for at least 7 of those days.
Is this the young man that you did a video on the missing on the other YouTube channel? It was just about 12 hours ago. He was missing 9 days?
Yeah, Andrew
that's the one.
Devers.
And I'd like to say hi to Doug too. Thanks for coming in, Doug.
Doug Hovius.
Yeah. So glad to have you all here. I've seen so many of you in the live chats and different shows, and it's just great to have everybody coming in. Well, that's one of the ones I wanted to bring up to you, Steve, because if you notice in his talk, when he was describing, it's almost like he had that where everything kind of goes quiet, or you're kind of out of your, let's just assume he wasn't on any drugs or anything, because of course that would affect it. But so many people have that disorientation, or they didn't realize where they were. And I believe during that conversation too, he was talking about like he could hear them and they couldn't hear him, or he could see them and they couldn't see. What was that? Do you
Yeah,
remember?
it's both ways, and that's something that's happened in lots of missing person cases. Well,
Hmm.
maybe not lots, but some. There's a precedent for it that he could hear people, and he would yell to them, but they wouldn't respond back. So he was seeing them, and they couldn't see him. Now, sometimes it's the other way around that people will,
Hmm. Yeah.
whatever. But also, he said that he felt like a ghost. He said that he's walking through there. He heard somebody calling his name once from across the river,
Hmm.
and he tried to get over there to get to where they were. He ended up falling in the river, carried downstream. Finally grabs a tree branch, pulls himself out. Didn't find the source of the voice that he thought he heard, but he did find some berries growing over there. Now, and that's what basically kept him alive, that and the river water. But that's another thing that's common in these cases are berries. A lot of times
Yes.
people picking berries, or it happens near a berry field or something like that. And that kind of brings in the whole faith theory and things.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's another time he thought he heard his girlfriend's voice. Now, granted, you're in the woods that long, you may hear and see all kinds of things, but it
Hmm.
seems to happen on a regular basis where people can hear the search and rescue, and sometimes even catch a glimpse of them, and they're yelling, "Oh, hey, here I am," but it's obvious that they can't hear him or see him. There's like something there, like so you think about that. If
Like
like a
almost like a hypnotic or a trance, like, because you and I both felt that in the woods
yeah, absolutely,
several different
and
times.
I reckon it to like say when a bird flies into a window, all he knows is that the air suddenly became solid. He can see what's on the other side, but he can't get to it.
Hmm.
There's something there blocking him that he, doesn't know what it is. I think it's almost something like somebody takes a giant glass jar or maybe an aquarium,
Puts it
turns it
over.
upside down, puts it over you, and there
Wow.
you are. You can't get out.
Like the dome,
Yeah,
like the dome, right?
exactly.
And you and I have also talked about the cow. How many times, how many stories, Steve, where they can hear the baby cow, but they can't see it. And there's no footprints in the snow, or the footprints disappear in the middle of a field and then poof, gone. So unless you went up, it got sucked up in a balloon or whatever, where you going? Footprints stopped in the snow. We've got it with cows. We have it with people. We have it with children. I,
Yeah.
I don't get it.
There's a story in, I don't know if it's in my
real
first
quick
book or my
real
second, but
quick, I want to
yeah,
say hi to Pseudonym and Patriot 17 and on, a Kiwi Patriot. I love you guys. Thanks for stopping in. It's wonderful to see y'all here. Thanks. Welcome in.
yeah,
Welcome in.
glad to see everybody.
Yeah.
I think I want to say my second book.
Okay.
They all run together after a while. But there was a guy who's had a cow or a calf go missing,
Hmm.
and he would hear it, and he would go the direction that it was in. And once he got to where he thought it should be, he would hear it from another direction. And then eventually he realizes that it's leading him further and further and further into the woods. And he gets kind of spooked and goes back. Never did find the calf.
Hmm.
But then the next day in the woods, in a clearing, he found impressions of where it looked like some kind of craft had landed.
Ooh.
So he thought it was maybe something either had the calf or was making the noises like the calf to
Hmm.
try to lure him out
To
there
lure
to
him.
where it could grab him. And then you've got that, like at Skinwalker Ranch, they talked about how their cattle kept disappearing. And once it had snowed, and they said, okay, well, now it'll be easy to figure out
Hmm.
where the cows are going. And they had tracks going right up to the wood line, and then nothing else. It didn't go any farther. It didn't go backwards. And it obviously had gone up because the gentleman observed that 12, 15 feet or higher, there were tree limbs broken up in the above where the cow had stopped. So, what is that?
I don't know. Obviously, there's so many mysteries that, and you and I discussed this multiple times. It's like maybe we're not supposed to know. Maybe let's go there and just say at some point maybe we're not supposed to have the answers to that. Why? Don't know. But it's twofold. It's like maybe we're not ready for that. Maybe we can't. possibly contain it in whatever we're dealing with right now, whatever percentage of our brains we're using. Maybe we just can't wrap our minds at this stage in it, if you know what I mean. Like, there's no way
Yeah.
we could fathom it. I've learned a lot about brain function over the past 4 years, and I can tell you that it's what a miraculous thing our brains are. But multiple people that are wiser than I'll ever be will tell you we're not using all of it. So I don't know if that's the case, or it's just we're not ready yet for that answer. Like, almost like the ending of a mystery. You don't want to read the last page first, you ruin the whole thing, and maybe if there is something in charge or a higher source that's controlling all this and has the wheel, so to speak, maybe it's just like, no, you'll spoil it, because we know multiple times if the dead come back to tell us, they won't tell us either. They'll give us snippets. That's always been something we've had in common, where we're trying, nope, they wouldn't tell us. It's amazing. It really is. I don't know where they're going. There was a question in here, and now let me see if I can catch it back. Maybe you can see. It was something about the stairs.
Yeah, DC Joy asked if the stairs in the woods are a real deal. And I like Laura's answer there. She says she's heard they're real and she's heard they're fake. But I've thought about that. I've never encountered any. And that's one of those things that's debunked, supposedly, by people on the internet. I mean, I could go on and debunk anything or prove anything.
That's true.
Just
with
saying
Snopes.
it on the internet, and people just Snopes.
Wikipedia.
I've seen stuff debunked on there that I know better. Wikipedia, anybody can edit that. And if you look at the people that are doing the debunking, it's the people that would want to cover up stuff, that would want to help hide things for whoever's responsible for it. I mean, the government's lied to us about every other single thing.
No, Steve.
Well,
they would never lie to us.
Look at the big full disclosure that turned out to be the absolutely biggest nothing burger ever.
That was like, I don't know. I can think of 10 different things I probably shouldn't say live on air, but that was just like, but you know what was more astounding? That didn't surprise anybody who was ready for that. It certainly didn't surprise some of the people in this chat, or some of the best diggers or researchers I've ever known in my life. But that was just a fluff. It was a fluff for the people who were satisfied with that. Oh, look, they're looking into it, George. It's going to be fine. The government has it. It's not a problem. That brings me to something else. Unless you want to say something, I got a question for you. Go ahead.
I was on a tangent there.
Go, baby, go.
If there are stairs in the woods, what would they be used for? Well, you think about that. If you had a craft that you normally landed in a certain area that was high up off the ground, you remember years and years and years ago when you flew on a jet, when you got ready to get on or get off, they had stairs that they would push out there, and that's how you'd get on and off the plane. Well, obviously in the woods, you're not going to have a stair set that you can drag around and push out to a craft or a vehicle. So you would build a permanent something like a staircase in the woods, and then that's where your craft would land or appear. Or and the same if it were a portal. What if you had a portal, and for whatever reason, the only way you could open it in this certain place at any certain time was 20 feet off the ground? Well, people couldn't jump out of it necessarily without getting hurt or injured, or stuff might fall out of it. But if you had it appear at a set of permanent stairs, there you go. You walk out of the portal, and that's the way you get into it. That would be my explanation for why they're there.
That my mind's blown, because I never thought about that. But as you're describing this, I've actually gotten on planes back in the 70s in Newark, where you had to push the stairs up. So I'm thinking, wait a minute, are these like alien craft that are more like the mobile home version of the
they don't have their own stairs, you don't want to jump 3 or 4 feet out the door.
You gotta land here because there's stairs here. We left them for you. Oh my God, that's funny.
Well, that's even funny. If they land, they may just materialize. But again, this is where we do it, because then it's easy to get on and off if whatever's bipedal that's coming in now there.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about in the chat now about the doors that are in the woods just out of nowhere. I don't know if I saw a door. I don't know that I would open it in the middle. I don't know.
I would, but I'd be ready to run.
Be ready to run. Yeah, I mean, that's just.
Or at least knock and then step back.
Yeah. And also, Kiwi Patriot said that it was absolutely a distraction what they dropped with the UFOs, and now they're changing the name of the. I don't know what they've changed the letters from UFO to something else, on aerial phenomena or so, UPAs or something.
Yeah.
So that's new. That's that'll appease us for the next like 10 years. Garbage. We've got presidents. We had Carter come out, and I'll tell you something. I was all for Carter. Just watching it. I was just checking him out because he's like, I'm going to go in there, and when I get in that room, I'm going to get those files, and I'm going to see, because he saw craft. He wrote a book on it.
Yeah.
He saw, he had his experience. But boy, I'll tell you what. When they brought him in that room, wherever they briefed the president, what you swear in? Okay, come and get the thing. He came out stark white as a ghost, and he's like, it's like, what do they tell him? But you've got the one with was it Nixon and Jackie Gleason? I think it was Nixon and Jackie Gleason. Like, he brought
it was Jackie Gleason.
Yeah. And then, of course, you've got all the ones that get on the night shows and they go, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to find out. Yeah, sure. This is what I want to know. Have you heard about the Eisenhower thing? You know where I'm going here?
Yeah.
Where it was, okay, where supposedly, you tell it because you probably have a better version than I do, but that's where I'm at. Go ahead, tell it.
Yeah, he supposedly wanted to know, and they tried to talk him out of it, and he more or less demanded it. And then they took him, I think it was to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio, and showed him the bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's his granddaughter, great-granddaughter, Laura Eisenhower. She's like a psychic and a medium, and does all this stuff. She's into the woo type stuff that we are. I've heard her talk about that.
Smart.
She is. She's brilliant.
I like her.
But she thinks that her grandfather, great-grandfather, whatever he was, that who he knew just because of stuff he had said that she'd heard passed on.
Now, the version I heard too, and piecing together, and I'm no expert on this, I'm asking you and anybody in the chat, pseudonym is saying yes. Okay, what if? This is in our, Steve and I have these files. This one is in the what if WTF file. They're both combined there.
Yeah.
If he made a treaty with them exchange,
that was the other part of that.
Technical.
I left out that part. When he saw the bodies and found out they were real and stuff, then he ended up somehow contacting them, and they made a treaty, and supposedly they signed something saying that in exchange for advanced technology, they could take humans and experiment on them, or draw blood, or whatever they needed to do.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Like dolphins. Now, I mean, think about it that way. We don't think anything about having marine biologists go out and tag dolphins or sharks or whales or anything like that for their own good. Let's, check them and make sure they're whatever they're doing. I think that's what they're doing to us, except a lot of times they don't tag and release. I think. Well, maybe they do tag and release, because maybe a lot of people.
You hear about people that have implants that have gone in,
exactly,
and you can see it on X-ray, and they've had stuff removed from that looks like chips or transistors or something.
Yeah, but think about that. Is it possible? Now, we know, we said it in the beginning, we totally trust the government and they would never lie to us.
Never.
But do you think that it's one time they sat and they made a treaty? I don't know what they exchanged for, a ray gun or maybe these little triangle things or whatever, invisibility, who knows, and said you could take as many as you want. No big deal. Now, it sounds odd, but where are all these missing people going in all these parks?
Yeah. And if you look at some of the people that go missing, they tend to be, there's certain coincidences that I don't think are coincidences at all. A lot of them tend to be of Germanic descent. A lot of them are on one end or the other. A lot of people on the autism scale will go missing, and then the other people that go missing tend to be very well-educated PhDs, things like that. I covered 6 cases from Idlewild, California.
Yes.
Recently, and I think it was Idlewild. One of those videos, it might have been California 5, which was different than the Idlewild. The California 5 were San Francisco, but I noticed a lot of them were described as being 6 feet tall and 200 pounds. I mean, more than a few of them. So it's like it's picking certain things. And if you were picking somebody for breeding stock, their age wouldn't necessarily matter. But if they were big, burly guys, 6 feet, 200 pounds, that's you're making linebackers or something out of them. That would be, it's like breeding cattle or horses or something.
Mhm.
You would want the best that you could get to make these either superhumans, super soldiers, whatever they're making out of them. Now, there's thoughts about that being our government that's doing that. That's messing around with DNA and things and trying to breed these super soldiers that don't feel pain, that it takes a lot to kill them, that they can stay up for days. They have no guilt or remorse or anything like that. They're literally killing machines.
Super soldiers, yeah.
Now, and
It's
there's a
it's I've
really
had
good.
many vets, not to cut you off, but many vets that said that right before they ever jumped, um, you know, rangers and stuff, they would give them a little cup, like a one of those little pill cups,
Mhm.
and it would have some green stuff in it that looked like pudding, like a real, almost like a green pudding, like a chartreuse green.
Yeah,
And he said after you took that, it was like you just wanted to kill everything in front of you.
yeah.
And that's a direct quote.
Look at some of the drugs that people abuse, like PCP. I've
Yeah.
seen video of 6 big cops that it took to hold down one little guy that was jacked up on PCP. Saw another guy that broke every bone in his hands to get out of the handcuffs and didn't feel a thing until
Didn't feel like,
afterwards.
yeah,
So if that's available, like that through those channels, imagine what the government has access to, or
yeah.
some of these black bag CIA or military black ops stuff.
Well, yeah, and I totally agree. And I really think, I've always thought about blood types, because
Mhm.
you and I have talked a lot about blood types, especially Rh negative. I'd be interested to know. There's a lot of good convo going down in the chats. There's some good links. Pseudonym is dropped, and Kiwi Patriot some information. It's going so fast I can't hardly read it, but um, I'm trying to catch it. It's awesome information. But the thing is if they did that again, I can sit here and name off multiple things where collateral damage is no big deal. This is for bigger, for the greater good, so to speak. They traded us. And I
Yeah,
think it happened. I really think it happened because when someone goes missing, rarely, now we know that from missing 411, with David Politis has really been putting in his time, looking at a lot of these cases. And he has very strict rules. I don't know what they all are, but they have to be in clusters. They have to meet a certain criteria or they don't really dig into it much. If it was an animal or something else, they don't, it's just certain ones. So it really is more people than he's
mhm.
talking about, or you guys talk about all of them. They don't have to meet a certain cluster,
Yeah.
So you guys have other cases that they don't have, that he doesn't have in his books as well. You have
Mm.
more, I think, because they all have to meet this real strict criteria. And I can understand when you hear him explain, I understand why he does it.
Mhm.
But one of the things is they don't normally have the blood type of a missing person. They don't do blood type autopsies, and especially, it might be in there somewhere, but it's not
Yeah,
in
I would
public
I would
information.
love to know
I would.
because I'm Rh negative myself. I'm
Me
B
too.
negative,
Me
the
too.
second rarest blood type, and a lot of the stuff that I've read and studied about it, it fits. We don't have any monkey blood in us. I think
Hmm.
we're from outer space or
I
something.
don't know, but
Um,
if you look at all the different, characteristics of Rh negative, and stuff like that, that's really strange too. But what if they're just looking for a certain blood type?
yeah,
You
I
know.
would love to see blood type info. Something else I would like to see is what phase of the moon these people are going missing in. I think
Hmm.
there's some kind of lunar connection there,
Hmm.
lunar cycle or something. Now you're talking about the super soldiers. There's a really good documentary. It's here on YouTube. It's called, and I just lost, like, Murder on the Motorway or something about the madness on the motorway,
Hmm.
and it's about these sisters from, I think they're from Sweden, that had traveled to England and got into all this trouble, and they're out on the motorway, the interstate there, actually jumping out in front of vehicles. And then one girl knocks her flat. She gets up and still fighting the cops. And I believe
Well,
that was super soldiers, that something had gone wrong.
yeah.
The one that had her legs crushed, she couldn't get away. The other one, they took her to the hospital and treated her and released her. some guy that was a military person, high up military person, invited her into his home. She ends up stabbing him to death and running away. So that time she jumped off a bridge, and it's amazing. It's all true. But I think he recognized, and he being military, I think he recognized that she had some sort of programming. And when he tried to access it, it flipped whatever kill switch she had in there. And that's
That
why
was
she
it.
went after him.
Or
Was
trigger words, there's trigger sounds and things like that. I mean, you
yeah,
can almost see it. And I know it sounds weird. Nobody in this chat or anybody listening tonight believes in anything weird and woo woo, do you?
yeah,
Because I've been telling people for 30 years that there's frequencies in certain things on television and in music. I can hear it, I can
mhm,
feel it. And you and I have talked all the time. I said, well, I could be in the back room, my studio somewhere, and I could tell when, my husband turns on the TV, puts on the news. I can feel the
yeah.
frequency change, the air changes. It's a fear frequency. I think it's 485 hertz or something like that. I guarantee you Sue or Kiwi could tell me,
Yeah.
but it's just, it's, you can feel it. And I think that they've been doing it for a very long time. But as far as people missing in the woods, I mean, the strangest cases, it just really seems like so many people just lose or they're being influenced by an outside source, whatever that may be. And if it is blood type, do you think that this Ancestry.com, 23andMe, are they looking for stuff? Is that
I think they are. I think that's a secret way, a sneaky way to get everybody's DNA. And I don't, I'm not going to play along with it. But then
Mhm,
every time you go to the hospital and you have a blood draw or anything like that, they've already got it.
mhm.
And again, I've heard stories that particularly the the ones that you do yourself, that they're storing those and putting them in like a DNA bank somewhere, like in a bunker underground, so that if something goes down, that they can repopulate with people, and from that
And
DNA,
pick.
they can pick and choose. Though this person's likely to have cancer or diabetes, we don't want to make
Mhm,
replicants of him. But
mhm,
this person's fit and healthy and has a high IQ. Let's make a dozen of him. So
mhm.
I mean,
That's true. That's true. I didn't even think that they'd be building. I thought that they were going for more like organ donors or, um, I don't know. It's just, it feels creepy,
yeah,
and to tug on your heartstrings. Like, don't you want to really know? Well, look,
yeah,
I know who I'm related to. You
same.
know,
I
I
don't I
know
don't need
I
to
know
know.
who's in the back. Yeah. Um, and in my case, and eventually in yours, you don't have to go that far back where there were no paperwork, which is
Mhm.
why they say, I tell people all the time, there's three things that have to prove their heritage by blood: racehorses,
Yeah.
dogs, Native Americans.
Hmm.
And or you have to prove back six generations, and they know we couldn't go back that far because we
Yeah.
didn't keep that kind of paperwork. So
Hmm.
I just think there's something sneaky to do with, and this is just all speculation, but when you see how they work on multiple levels, and if there was a treaty that was done with at least an alien race to this air, to us, whether it's extra dimensional or space or whatever you want to call it, or all of them, we're dolphins,
Hmm.
we're guinea pigs, we're being tagged and released. You hear so many of these things. So is it, I think it's possible that some of those people could be going that way.
Yeah. I agree. I think to some degree we're an ant farm or a zoo exhibit or a livestock to some degree, and and you think about
Mm,
that when all this started happening, the modern UFO age started in the '40s with Kenneth Arnold when he saw something over here in Washington State, which is just up the road from me,
mhm,
and then right after that, look how the technology just began to expand so fast exponentially after Roswell and
mhm,
after Kenneth
mhm,
Arnold and
mhm,
all that. I mean, just from if you look at how things increased and how things multiplied between the '40s and between even the early '60s, with
mhm,
uh, transistors and the integrated circuits,
mhm.
and look what what a difference it is from when we were kids back in the 70s and 80s to
Mhm.
what's available now.
Exactly. And Pseudonym said it in here too about look how much the technologies has shot since Eisenhower, up, so it's all very plausible. And if they are handpicking us, because there's got to be something, because it's not just people missing in the woods, but there are some cases that you and I have talked about in the past where they're taken out of the city or they're in a bar on CCTV and all of a sudden it just that person goes fuzzy and then there's
Mhm.
nothing.
Yeah.
Everybody else is clear. It's I just don't know what it is.
And in some of those cases where you have footage of them going into a bar and then none of them coming out,
Yeah.
and then maybe 2 weeks later they'll find them in some sort of water, a canal or
Yes.
a river, and yet autopsy shows that they've only been in the water a couple of days. Where were they at the other 12 days? What was going on with that?
God, my heart breaks for these people.
There's a really good book by Robert Guffey called Cameleo. If you've
Yes.
ever had a
Hmm.
chance to read that, he talks
Love it.
about this invisibility thing that the military is working on, and they use short statured people, midgets, I think
Hmm.
he calls them, and then the people that they're experimenting with this technology on tend to be like prostitutes and heroin addicts
Hmm.
and street people, people that
Hmm.
disenfranchised by society anyway.
Hmm.
Nobody's going to listen to them. Nobody's going to believe them. And
Hmm.
that's what Dion, the
Yep.
main subject in the book, says. Who's going to believe me that I have invisible midgets coming into my apartment and
Yes.
messing with my stuff?
It's
And
true.
it makes a lot of sense. But that's one of the most amazing books I've ever read. If
Yeah.
you put it in the right
Fantastic.
context and think, could this really happen? Then it
Absolutely.
explains a lot of things.
Absolutely. It's a fantastic and it's a great and one of the best interviews I've ever heard with that. It's a two-parter is on Where Did the Road Go with Zariah Asketh.
Hmm.
Because Zariah really digs in there and talks to
Yeah,
Guffey and it gets all that, through and you really get the heart of the
yeah, that
story.
was a great shows.
It
It's
was
right, and
amazing.
then Adam Sane on Conspiranormal.
Hmm.
He
Yes.
did at least one, maybe two interviews with Robert that
Hmm.
are just outstanding.
Yeah. And I mean, that's where, I would absolutely send the listeners there because, read the book for sure. But then you start getting in with all that. What's happened since? What are we seeing since? We've all seen the cloaking um, videos. We've all seen, like I said, there's a lot of really good researchers in this chat right now that we've all seen it. When I was in the military, you don't get to see everything, but you see snippets. I got a good seat because I was, for a long period there, I was a VIP driver. So I can't repeat the stuff I heard that was going on in the back seat, but the conversations, man, they make you go and dig into something else.
Yeah.
It depends on where you were. And, of course, I swore to never tell, but I can always tell a story that might happen. But that's it. And I think out of all the things, Journey Through the Gate is all about, what are we going to see? We walk through the gate this time, and we kind of walk along the journey, and we all go together, and we just kind of have a little chat. And what if? And what scares you the most, because we're all scared of things we don't understand. We start digging into it, and in this case, I think the more you dig, the scarier you're going to get, because you do start to understand and you do start to get the fact that how far um, people in, what they used to say, I think Abraham Lincoln used to say, the fat men with the cigars in the
Mhm.
room that make the decisions, the big men with the tall hats kind of thing. They don't care
Yeah.
about you. It's all about what's next and what are we going to, beat these guys at, beat this at. So many things are coming up now that we're really questioning, and this tech is kind of flipping on them, because I think they thought it was just going to distract us, and it did in a wonderful way. It distracted us into research and digging and finding out the truth and learning how to pull up information and then check it and check it again and see how that links into that. And this thing right here, I think, is what scares a lot of people, because we just have zero answers.
Mhm.
Ghosts popping up, at 2 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, that's going to scare you. But we've started to talk about that now. We find out that more and more people that weren't talking about it had experiences, or at least something that they couldn't explain. But this, to be walking with a group of 5 people, and the two go around the corner, and the third one goes around the corner, the fourth one goes around the corner, third one's not there anymore.
Yeah.
Where'd he go?
And
You
then
know?
there's been cases of couples that have disappeared. That's something that can take two people out. And
Mhm.
then also the people that are found without their shoes and stuff, or they
Right.
find the shoes and not the person.
Right.
I've got a theory on that. If you were going to hunt people for sport, what better way to slow them down enough? I mean, they still have a sporting
Oh,
chance,
wow.
but they're not going to get away. And what made me think of that out here in Portland, we had the
Wow.
Shanghai tunnels that
Yes.
back during the late 1800s, early 1900s, you went into the wrong bar, the wrong brothel, you got slipped something. When you passed out, they'd take you in the back, drop you down into the tunnels. And then when you came to, if you weren't already on a ship headed for the Far East, you were in this darkened tunnel. Well, one of the things they would do before they dropped them down the tunnel was take their shoes off. And then the tunnel was sandy,
Wow.
had a sandy bottom, and it was covered in broken glass. So even the ones, the hale and hardy ones that did come to and could possibly get up, they couldn't get away.
Those
So
bastards.
you think about that. If you were going to hunt humans, whether it's a predator creature or a
Son of a
Bigfoot-like
bitch.
thing, take their shoes away from them in the woods, and then say, "Okay, run for it." And, they're not going to get far,
Wow.
but they won't totally get away from it. They won't have as much of a chance of escaping as if they still had their hiking boots on.
Man, Steve.
So is it taking people for sport? Is it? I think it's a little bit of everything. I think
I
some
do
are
too.
taken for research. I think some are taken for sport or pleasure.
Hmm.
A little bit of everything.
Wow. I just, it's amazing when I talk to you. This always happens. We have a conversation when it's on the phone or whatever. And I'm like, what? Because something will click.
Mm-hmm.
My Nana, who was pretty almost full-blooded Native American, Lenni Lenape. Everybody knows them more commonly as the Delaware Indian, okay? She always taught me walk around without shoes. Toughen your feet up. You never
Mm-hmm.
know when you're going to need to run.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? you know? But seriously,
It's like she knew something might take your shoes and tell you to run for it.
it just clicked in my head. And I remember it's the same grandmother who told me about going into the woods. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
Where she said, she took me out, we were collecting herbs. For people who don't know the story, one of the first things she ever taught me was the sassafras, and she used to speak it like real quiet. She'd look around like this, make sure nobody was looking. We're in the woods. Who's going to hear, But they were that careful because they did not want to reveal their nationality, because back then she was born in 1890. So when she
Mm-hmm.
was born and being, a young girl, people were still losing property, being sent to reservations. I mean, all kinds of horrible things. People were just mean, especially around in the city and stuff. But she told me about the sassafras, and she'd tell me about the paths. Don't go off the path, stay on the path. If you, the certain things you feel, like if you feel that everything goes still, pay attention to nature. If the birds go still, if quiet, everything gets quiet, go back
Mm-hmm.
where you don't go forward, go back where you were until that stops. And then that one time she told me about, there are things in the woods that we don't speak of. There are
Mm-hmm.
things in the woods that you respect. And I got really scared after a couple of these times. And I said, we started talking about the big man or whatever, the big creatures and stuff. And they said, I just don't want with you to, take you with him rather. And I was like, what does that mean? And then that was it. You didn't talk about it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So you got little snippets of these really scary little darts of truth. And then you'd stop until the next time she was ready to talk about it again, And that's when she was telling me that basically, she was calling it Sasquatch, or she didn't call it Bigfoot. And she said that he was a spiritual creature.
Mm-hmm.
And that they could come in. They had ways of coming through to our world and going back through again. They were spiritual. They were half here and half there. I think it was Young Guns when I saw, it was really funny. He's like, you see the size of that chicken? That scene right there where he's talking about, I'm in the spirit world, man. And that reminded me of that. It's like, you don't mess with certain creatures, because they're half here and half there. And I don't want them to take you with them.
Mm-hmm.
and learn to run barefoot. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Plus it's just a good idea to get out and ground yourself. I do that several times a week. I'll go out barefoot, make sure I'm standing on the ground
Mhm.
somewhere, and just kind of that's one way to get negative energy. That'll shed it off of you quicker than anything.
Oh, real
Is
quick, I'd like to not to interrupt you, but I have to say hi to Grandpa. Say hello, love. How are you? It's so good to see you here. And also, Laura Stevens says she's part Lenape also. And like I said, that's very important to keep that. But I think number one, Steve and I've always talked about this a lot too, is it's also a way of life. And I think we're all very connected to nature. We learn from nature and try to keep our little spot wherever we're living, even if it's one bird feeder,
Mhm.
to try to keep, nature taken care of and to observe them and take care of them. And, you'll see the littlest of creatures like the little chickadee or a chipmunk warning the whole yard that there's a hawk or there's this.
Yeah.
And, I think too, um, oh, there's a lot of hunters I know, and military, of course, anybody that hangs in the woods that really pays attention to that. And there was a story that you had when you were walking through the woods, and you just felt like you just wanted to kind of go to sleep. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that was in the Smokies. I'd been up to Klingman's Dome, which is the highest point in the Smokies. I've been up there, the observation deck, and I'm one of those people that are probably apt to go missing or used to be. So I would go off trail. I didn't want to stay on the trail. That's where, all the day
Mm-hmm.
trippers and the tourists and stuff was. I like to
Yeah.
go and see stuff that you didn't see, you couldn't see from the trail. And I was somewhere below Klingman's Dome, and I'd gone off the trail, and there's a game path or something down through there. And I'd stepped off to look. I believe it was some mountain laurel or something. There was something growing over there that looked pretty. Well, then I saw off kind of behind that, there was a little clearing. And I went into the clearing, Cisco, and there was the biggest oak tree that I've ever seen. It didn't even look real. It looked like a Disney tree,
Mm-hmm.
like it had been imagineered. Now, there's oak in the Smokies. Um, in the higher elevations like that, but it's usually the smaller ones like the red oak and stuff like that. You don't see these giant ancient trees out there like that. They're not an oak anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm standing there marveling at it. And then that was when I noticed everything had gone quiet. And I mean, it's like hitting the mute button on your life. I couldn't hear any animals. I couldn't hear the wind in the trees. I couldn't hear any water. I couldn't hear any foot traffic or automobile traffic, although I probably wouldn't have been able to hear any of that from where I was at anyway. But it just totally, like being in a vacuum, that kind of silence, like a dead silence.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm looking at that tree and I'm thinking, just marveling at it. And I'm thinking, and the sun was kind of shining down through the clouds, and it was just a very Kafkaesque moment there too. And I'm thinking, I bet that'd be just a great place to I could sit down and meditate, maybe even lay down, take a nap or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, it just occurred to me, it scared me. I was shocked. I was like, what am I thinking? It's going to be dark soon. I got to get down off this mountain, or I'm going to be out here wandering around in the dark. And I didn't have a headlamp or anything with me at that time. I knew I'd be back before dark, or had planned on it. And but once I got out of that clearing and away from that tree, it just kind of broke that spell. But makes me wonder how many people have encountered something like that and say, okay, well, I'll just sit down and go to sleep and see what happens. Kind of like a Rip Van Winkle thing. Now, of course, that brings the Fae back into it. He saw little men playing tin pins in the forest and drank something they offered him from a jug, and then he wakes up 20 years have gone by.
Yeah. I mean, the little people, we've talked about them. We've talked about, there's little people all around the world, whether it's, leprechauns or the Cherokee little people are all over. And we just don't know why these people, it could be a combination of multiple things. But the one thing that really got me was they just let us go like dolphins. And,
Yeah.
it sounds crazy to say it, but I'm sure there's been multiple other things that they've, we're not gonna get them tonight, but we definitely will get them into a Saturday when Kiwi and Suda and them are here. But the things that they'll do and allow, and I think the reason they get away with it for so long, if that's what's happening, is because people just don't believe other people will do that to other human beings. And that's just nuts, because they will. And, if the aliens, I don't know what they're doing. I don't think there's one. I think there's multiple. It'd be crazy to think there's just one. It's like the same thing you and I get when people say, well, ghosts wouldn't do that. And I'm like, really? Because I've been doing this for 47 years and I've not found a fit thing that fits everything. You feel the same way, Steve?
Yeah, absolutely. And just, I've talked about this, that the more you delve into this, you're not going to find any answers, but more questions. That old paranormal onion, it's just layer after layer. But to me, I don't want answers. I'm after the new questions. I think that, to me, that's just as exciting as to think of a question that I'd never thought of before, to be able to pose to you, like some of this stuff I've thrown at you here tonight. That's the joy in it for me, is finding stuff that I hadn't thought about before. Right. I don't think there are any answers. And if we did have, would you want to know? Would you want to know an explanation for everything? I wouldn't. That would spoil all the fun.
Right. I think it's triple fold, though. And I'm wondering if it doesn't have something to do with, well, here's the thing. You can't automatically think that if aliens, or, for the lack of a better word, extraterrestrials, whatever you want to call them, because I think aliens is such a wide word, but you wouldn't think, okay, well, they would be bad if they're doing this. No, because you wouldn't consider a marine biologist bad for checking on a dolphin and tagging it and pulling it in and, giving it medicine or doing whatever they're doing and then putting them back out. You wouldn't think that. You'd think that was science and it's research and it's, they can dig up graves and call it archaeology until it's your grandma. Then you got a problem with it, So there's all those different things. We compartmentalize things to accept them. And I just don't know that we're ever going to get an answer on this. And it's when I think of stuff like this, I think of the movie The Vanishing. And there was the original one. I don't know if there's a new one, but the whole thing was the guy was missing his girlfriend or his wife, and he kept going through, and I think it was Keith or Sutherland, and he's going through, he's trying to figure out what it is. It was a serial killer, and he goes, you want to know what happened to her? And then he did to him what he did to her, and that was bury him alive. And I'm just thinking, oh gosh, sometimes you don't want to dig that deep, because you just, like you said, sometimes you don't want to know the answers. It's almost like that gin thing where I'm going to make a wish. Come on, make a wish. I can't wait to twist this one on you, So it's kind of like that. And I kind of feel a little more comfortable with the ghosts and the scary stuff, because I almost know how to deal better with those, because it's almost like an energy thing, But I don't know that we'll have the answers, like you said, that we might not want to know, because if we have to find out by having it happen to us or one of our loved ones, my heart goes out to every family member who's ever had anybody missing. I cannot imagine losing a child like that or someone you love and just going on and on and on and not knowing. And I'm wondering if that's not part of it, because if they're evil, if they do get off on other people's fear, then a missing person would be twofold to them, because then you have that loosh, that negative energy, the fear, the grief, and everything else that they can feed on. And that's just
from an experimental purpose to see how people would react to that. Because you've got a person, say it's their progeny, then you see how they react to having that person taken away from them. And then if you're going to use the person that you took to make something else out of, then you would know how it would react emotionally to certain situations and things. So that's, again, you can go down some deep rabbit holes here.
Okay. And you can. And then, like you said, David Paulides has dug into it. You and Bill have dug into it. And the cool thing about your channel and all the wonderful people on there, how many subscribers do you have now?
Let me look real quick here.
I mean, it's up there. You also have their knowledge coming in, their research coming in, their ideas coming in, and that's amazing. Yeah,
and we started doing listener stories, and that's one of our most popular things that we have, because just about any story that somebody tells, somebody else will come along and say, that happened to me, and it kind of emboldens people
Mhm.
to come out and say, well, I've had that experience too, or something similar happened to me, or, I never heard of that, but here's what I experienced. And that, it's good for everybody. It makes you feel less crazy or less like you're going to be ridiculed or whatever.
Mhm.
Currently, we have 93,674 subscribers.
It's amazing.
Which
It's
is,
amazing. Well, I've watched it evolve, and you and I have talked about this. I don't even know how long we've been friends anymore. I lost count. But I told you, you should get on YouTube and you could read, do your stories, whatever, and boom, 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 and I told
I
you it would
fought
be
it for a long
amazing.
time.
I know. And I told you it'd be absolutely amazing. I love doing this. And, to my listeners out there that have been looking for a show, we had so many things go on here. I mean, I hooked up something to my laptop and everything blew, my mixer. I had to get a new mic. I had to get new laptops. I don't do credit. I pay up front. So it took me a long time to get everything back together. But Steve talked me into doing this and doing live. And I talked to him again, his beautiful face on here. And it's just wonderful. And we're hoping to do a lot of these shows. I hope to have Steve on as much as possible, because we can just sit down and talk about, anything from dog men to slender man to tulpas
Yeah,
to
anything. And
chameleon. It's
I,
just amazing.
we need to have like a show some night where we just let the audience throw a topic and we'll
Yeah.
do extemporaneous speaking on it for say 5 minutes and then go to something else. If anybody could do it, it'd be you and I, because we've
Yeah.
studied this stuff.
So
Literally,
long.
I've been looking into this my whole life, just like
Mhm.
you. From the
Mhm.
time I saw my first full body apparition when I was between 5 and 6 years old, and I'd had experiences before that, and it's a never ending journey, and I love it. So I can sit and talk all day about this
Yeah.
stuff, and but then sometimes, I'll hear something that makes me think, wow, I don't even know what I'm talking about. But I was just using my
Yeah.
experience as a frame of reference. And then you have somebody that comes along and,
Yeah.
it's like where you have the blind men describing the elephant. It depends on what side of the elephant you're on, so what
Yeah.
it looks like or how it feels or
Exactly, that old
whatever.
thing with the feeling the elephant. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's it, and we've come a long way. If we've done nothing else in our lifetime other than, all the little wonderful things along the way, we've come from being that young boy that you were, begging your mom to get you that Ouija board and the Christmas album, right?
Yeah.
And if you want to hear that story, we're gonna believe me, we'll be back. We're gonna be doing this. I hope to do this at least twice a month with Steve, if not more.
Yeah.
But and then I was the young girl who had a lot of experiences too, and was trying to find answers, and nobody would talk to me about it. So I had to go to books and I had to look for stuff, and I found Hans Holzler.
And that old
And yeah.
librarian telling you that there were no such thing as ghosts.
She did too. She looked right down. Here's the story, kids. I was new. I went to I think probably 6 schools between the 3rd and 4th grade. And my mom, it was just a single mom, and she kept getting moved. Advertisement was changing, and she just moved with the times, and she was a real survivor. But it's hard on a kid being new all the time, and I was fine with it because I'd just go to the library and get books. And I'm like, how many books can I get out? 11. I was that kid carrying the stack of books down the hall because they were your friends. You always had a friend when you had a book, So I was always looking. So we're at a new place, in a new school, new library. And I go running in, and my mom says, you got, I'll give you 20 minutes. I got to look through the paper and do some stuff. And I said, great. And I was in a rush, and I run up, and the librarian, literally the bun on the head, the sweater with the chain and the glasses. And then we had Dewey Decimal. So I had to go through the cards and look. And I'm looking for, ghost stories. I want true ghost stories. And I found something, and it was, when I found the section, it was like the things that go bump in the night, kid stuff, which is great, but I wanted the real stuff. And I ran up to the librarian and I said, excuse me, ma'am. I said, my mom's in the car waiting for me. I know I'm supposed to look it up, but I can't find it. I'm looking for true ghost stories. And she looks at me like this, and she goes, there are no true ghost stories. And I'm like, let me tell you something, lady.
And I'm painting with a broad brush here,
Mhm,
but anybody I ever encountered in school
mhm,
that had the glasses out on the end of
mhm.
their nose like that and had the little chain, I knew they were going to be a problem.
Yeah, yeah.
They were
Well,
the Karens of our time.
Cisco found the real ghost stories, trust me. But that was the thing. And I was just looking for answers. Like, tell me I'm not crazy. I know I saw something. I know, this is going on, and so we've come a long way from that. I mean, here we are now live talking to a wonderful chat room, talking to wonderful people that are, listening and are listening in the future. And now everybody's getting together and we're all talking about it, our experiences. We're asking questions and we're bouncing ideas off of each other. And, tonight is proof, Steve. You said that about the shoes and it zapped me back to which is you never know when you're going to have to run barefoot. What did she know? I wish she
Yeah.
was here. I could ask her questions. I wish, and your grandmother was a proclaimed gypsy witch. And,
She's really a granny witch in
yeah,
Appalachia, but she stuck the gypsy on there. I guess she
yeah,
thought that sounded more
yeah,
esoteric or something. And what it was, it worked. I mean, she
yeah,
told fortunes and read tea
mhm,
leaves and coffee grounds and animal entrails and
yeah.
phrenology. She could tell stuff about you with the bumps on your head and things like that.
But you know what? It's no different than, what I used to call the old goat woman on the hill, right?
Yeah.
Or the medicine man, I mean, they saved my life when I got bit by the spiders. If it wasn't for the medicine men and,
Mhm.
the herbal, ladies living in the middle of nowhere, that's where I got sent because the hospitals and the doctors could not help me. You
Yeah.
have to fight nature with nature, my elders told
That
me.
was my other grandmother. The gypsy witch was my mother's mother. And then my dad's mother, she called herself a yarb doctor, which herb doctor. They just had a funny way of saying it over there on
Mhm.
the Cumberland Plateau. But yeah, she made herbal medicine. She practiced medicine without a license, of course, because it was herbal medicine. She also ran the post office, cut hair, and pulled teeth.
Hey, hey.
She could take care of just about anything you had going on. But she was like that. She would teach you that, like, if there's something in nature that's hazardous to you that can hurt you, there will be something nearby
Yes.
there that will treat that.
So
She said,
true.
if you're in an area where there's snakes, there will be plants that you would put on a snake bite. If you get into poison ivy, near that there'll be something growing that you can put on poison ivy that'll take the sting out of it. And
Mhm.
she had this incredible amount of knowledge, and my dad had a lot of that too. Just being my grandmother was half Cherokee,
Mhm.
but my she was like that. My dad was too, where they could walk through the woods and point out everything that you could eat, everything that would kill you, what everything was, what it was good for, what it was not good for,
Mhm.
and that used to just blow my mind as a kid.
Yeah. Well, that's why I liked our walks. You walk into the store, you got like a cure for a bellyache, and you got this, and and it wasn't just what the herb did and how many different things it could help cure or help you through, but it was also the fact that you only took 1/3. You
Hmm.
left 2/3 to nature so it could reproduce. And if we stuck to that, can you imagine where we would be today? You
Yeah.
know? And now it's just destroy, destroy, destroy. But I promised I wouldn't keep you on here too long. And as usual, our talks go so fast. It's just like a whirlwind.
It
But I
does.
really wanted to kick this wonderful time off, coming back and getting Journey back online
Yeah,
and
it's great
everything.
to have you back. I know you had to
Thanks.
take a life break there, but
So
everybody,
much stuff.
please subscribe, hit the like button.
Oh,
I'd like to do these, just based on your availability, maybe on a weekly basis or something.
I
I'd like to
absolutely. Let's
come
do
in
it.
and have these little talks and see if we can't get a bigger crowd next time. I did put it on Missing Persons and Mysteries, but after it had started. But if I know,
I
a
certainly
week ahead of
appreciate it.
time that it's going to be, I can do a little
Yeah,
bit of barking and get people to come in.
absolutely. Once a week, let's do it, man. Let's do it. I mean, we've had so much fun. We've got so many great conversations on there now with like monsters and just all of the strange things. I mean, we just have a ball. We set out. We're going to talk about this. And now it gets to the point. It's like, no, we're not. We're gonna be we're gonna be doing whatever. But I wanted to get one ghost story each, so we can kick this off. If you, boy, that's like saying which one is your favorite kid, right?
Yeah.
What's been that one ghost story or haunting that is either intrigued you, or maybe you thought one thing and then that happened and it changed you or made you rethink it, or something along those lines? What would be the best one for you?
Oh wow. There's so many different ways I
Wow.
can go with that because, like you said, it's like trying to pick a favorite kid
Mm-hmm.
because they all have some meaning or something. But probably the most important and the most influential was the very first one, the little toddler that I saw. Um, I was 5 going on 6, and had a kid that lived down the road from me that was, I think he was a year younger than I am. He was our next door neighbor, and by next door, we lived out in the country, so it's a couple miles away. And I was waiting for him to get back from the store with his mom one day, and our house sat 212 feet off the road. I know because I later in life measured the driveway for other purposes, and I was about halfway out in the yard, so I was like 100 feet from where this happened. Um, there was an inverted T intersection. Road came down the hill, and stop sign, and then could go left or right. Right took you to the lake, and left just another way to take you back out to the main highway. So I'm out in the yard waiting for my friend. I see a car coming down the hill, and I think, oh, I bet that's them. So I start walking toward the road. I figured his mom would let him out to stop sign. Well, sure enough, the car stops at the stop sign, but it's not his mom's car. It's a male driver, somebody I'd never seen that car before. And just about the time he stops, out from behind the car, a kid runs out. I mean, a little kid, like a toddler, like maybe 2 years old. Didn't get out of the car. He ran from behind it. And he hadn't been in the road, or there wasn't a kid on the side of the road or anything. Those yards were clear over there, and had uncle on one side and knew the neighbors on the other. And I thought, man, that kid is going to get hit because he's so little. The guy in the car is not even going to see him because he ran right around the car and in front of it. And sure enough, the guy in the car didn't register that he saw any little kid or anything. He looked to the left, he looked to the right, and then he turned and off he went. And in the meantime, while all this is going on, this little kid, he runs out from behind the car, runs at an angle through that intersection, across the road, and down into our yard. And if you've ever observed kids that have just barely mastered walking, sometimes they'll start running and they don't really know how to stop, so they'll just fall down.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what this little guy did. And Cisco, when he hit the ground, he was just gone. He ceased to exist. And I was probably within, because I'd already started walking toward the road, I was probably within 60 or maybe even 50 feet at this time. I went straight to the spot. There was no hole there, nothing there that I could have confused as for a kid. There was nothing. There was nothing there anyway. And I knew there wasn't any holes or anything there because I rode my bicycle all over the yard. And at a later point, I even went back and dug at the spot to see if, maybe there was a kid buried there or something. Absolutely nothing there.
Nothing.
And, but it didn't scare me. It was more like, what the hell was that? Even at almost 6 years old, I know that little kids don't run across the road and, after appearing out of nowhere, run across the road, fall down and disappear. And I can still see him just as plain. He was dressed in appropriate clothing for that time. It looked, he was wearing like stuff that was popular in the 60s. Had little blue shorts with matching suspenders, a white shirt, a little blue hat, and white shoes and socks.
Mm.
And again, for years after I researched that road that he was on, the main road that came down to the T, that was named after my grandparents. That was where they had their dairy farm. They had lived there for decades on that road.
Wow.
Had all kinds of relatives on that road.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody ever heard of anybody dying on that road. Certainly not any little kids during that period in time. And I don't know. The only thing I can think of is that it could be attached to the car. I've often wondered if the guy driving that car, because the way he turned, that dead ended into the lake. And I'm thinking, did he have a kid's body in there that he was going to take and toss in the lake? And I saw the spirit of it. Or was it a car that had hit a kid and the spirit was attached to the car? But then another thing I thought about, I had a guest on my show one Sunday, and she talked about something that happened to her when she was little. She was walking down the road. She had some neighbors that had a Coke machine on their porch. This was a way to make a few extra quarters, and just, it's kind of a neighborhood hangout spot.
Yep.
People come and spend a quarter to get a Coke and then stand on the porch and talk. Well, she was on her way down to her neighbor's house to get a Coke, and she passed a man standing in a vacant lot. And the man said something to her like, nice day, isn't it? Or something. But before he could finish, he was gone. He just disappeared.
Yeah.
And then she was thinking about this. It didn't scare her. It just puzzled her. She gets her Coke and comes back, and she's thinking about that vacant lot. She's like, why have I never noticed that vacant lot before? She said, I've got to tell the other kids about that. She wasn't even thinking about the disappearing man at this point. But she said, that'd be a great place to play stickball or kickball or whatever we wanted to do. So she comes back down same street. When she gets to where the vacant lot was, it's not vacant, and she knew it
What?
couldn't be vacant. There were houses and things there that had been there. There was no vacant lot. There
Whoa.
was no man, and she had her coke and everything. And she said that she thinks it was some sort of. She described
Time
it as
slip.
like if you had two sheets of silk,
Hmm.
one represented one time and one represented another, and at some point they touched enough that you could see through both at the same
Hmm.
time, and then they
Hmm.
pulled apart. And that's what she thinks, that it was a time slip or an alternate
Or
reality.
like a meld. Yeah, just a,
Yeah.
just a touch.
And
It's
she thinks
crazy.
somewhere there was a man standing in an empty lot that had a little girl pass by, and when he said nice day or whatever, she disappeared. So he probably experienced it from the other end of that. But
Wow. And then he thinks he saw a ghost. And that's very
yeah,
much like we're talking about the elevator in the Gettysburg.
and I said all that to go back to the little
Hmm.
kid that ran across the street. Maybe that's what that was. That's why he was running. He suddenly, hey, where am I? I'm only 2 years
Hmm.
old, but I don't recognize this place. There's a car here. There's a street. I see a kid in the yard over there. I'm going to run over there. And then as he's trying to get to me, falls down, boom, back in his time. I don't know. There's several different explanations there.
Yeah, there's a lot. And I'm thinking too, you said he was an older clothes, and I've talked about this before. It could have been a time slip. It could have been also a ghost from that time. And everybody always asks, like, why are you always seeing ghosts in, like this era of
Mhm.
time? Well, maybe we're not. Maybe we're seeing time slips from that. Like
Yeah,
you've had experiences like that. I've had experiences like that where it's just felt like, whoa, many famous ones like the Versailles and all that, where they
mhm.
saw, different things. There's a lot of them like that. But it also could have been being the fact that, how old were you? Weren't you like
I was
6?
5, almost
5.
6. That
Okay.
was like in probably August or something, and I would have been my birthday would have been in October 31st. Halloween's my birthday, so
It could have been,
just a
Steve, that
couple
that
months
little,
short.
if it was a ghost and it wasn't a time slip or something like that, it could have just been that little guy was just connected to your energy,
Yeah,
because you had that energy, and it was a welcoming, very much like his. And maybe he was
yeah,
running not from the car or the road, maybe he's running to you and just didn't
yeah.
make it.
That's what I thought. He just, hey, I see another kid over there. I'm going to try to get to him because I
Yep.
don't know where I'm at and what's going on.
Yeah. And then they only have a little bit of time to materialize. It takes so much energy, I believe,
Uh,
to do that. And
I asked
just
my
bam.
grandmother about that one, and she was the one, the gypsy witch one
Hmm.
that knew all these things. And she gave me kind of a cryptic answer. She said, well, and she always told me that I was special. I was born with a veil
You are
or caul
special.
over my face. Thank you. Which is just, it's the amniotic sac. It was stretched over my head rather
Hmm.
than tearing away like it was supposed to. But in Appalachians, that you're marked, then you're a special
Hmm.
person with all kinds of wild talents and stuff. Now that's according to my granny and her ilk. But she said that because of that, because of this second sight that you have and things, she said, you're going to see things that other people don't see, things that don't make any sense, things that maybe are meant for somebody else, and you'll see them too. And then there will be things that's just meant for you to
Hmm.
let you know that you're different and you
Hmm.
see things other people can't. And again,
100%.
that was like the best answer ever because it was every answer and no answer. None of that made any sense. So,
Yes, and I think that very much connects into the beginning of this conversation when we were talking about, something I've learned from my native heritage is about your journey. And as I get older and older, it becomes a little clearer that if I had learned what I know now when I was 15, I wouldn't have understood it. I wouldn't have appreciated it. I wouldn't have taking it in the way I take now. That could go with anything on this journey we're all on. And I've heard many things like when you're starting to get into consciousness and, ascending, your frequency and stuff, where you're just not ready for some of that information. And we talked about that earlier when we were talking about where the missing people are going. Maybe it's just something that we can't wrap our brains around yet,
yeah,
and, we just might have not been ready for it. So I think sometimes these things also come not to teach us at the moment, but maybe later on down the line as well. We can look back and we can go, I thought it was
yeah.
this, but it could be this,
That's what that was. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I
That's
like
so
those
cool.
little aha moments like
I
that
do
when
too. I
it
do too.
all
I had
kind of
one
makes
tonight.
sense.
I had one tonight with you. I can't believe the shoes, man. That's gonna, haunt me. It's like, what else did she try to tell me that I did? Because I'm hearing this
Yeah.
at 6 and 8 and 9 and 10.
So toughen those feet up in case you're ever
Always do.
put out in the woods
And it's
without
also
your
because of
shoes.
grounding. They wanted you to ground, because
Yeah.
they knew there was something in the meditation and getting back into nature. But okay, I got one, and I'm sitting here trying to think. Is it the scariest? No. Is it the most that I learned the most from? No. But when Steve and I wrote the book, and most people know that Steve and I wrote a book called "We Are All Children in the Wilderness of the Afterlife: A Guided Tour Through a Haunted Life," and Steve told a great story on conflict about that and how we got started. And basically, the short version of that is he talked me into writing my stories down. I said I would, but you're coming with me. We're going to do it like we normally do a conversation. I'm going to write my chapter. I'm going to send it to you. Write whatever comes to your mind after. I don't care if it's a joke, an anecdote, a story that reminds you of this or something. And Steve will vouch for me. I sent him my chapters. He wrote his stuff, and then I read it all at once. I didn't change a word. It was absolutely perfect the way everything he wrote, and it was great the way it came out. But when I also wrote the book, I didn't just want to tell the stories. I wanted to tell people who were scared. I wanted to tell people who were lonely. I wanted to tell people who were grieving, lost something, whether it was your pet or a cherished friend or a family member, loved one, that when I started this podcast, this is a perfect story to tell tonight because here we are starting again, the second chapter. And I started the podcast because I wanted to put some light into the darkness, because everything you turned on TV was, the boards creaked in the floor. It's a demon, it's you know, or it's this and it's that. And not to say that that stuff doesn't exist, and not to say, I'm not saying that. It certainly does. If there's good, there's evil. If there's evil, there's good. It's just yin yang. So I wanted to put some light back in, and I wanted to share a story that showed that love, even to strangers, complete strangers, it's all intent. And I believe that they can see your energy or feel your energy just like you can feel theirs, and they can feel love, they can feel kindness. And I'm talking about the dead who have not crossed over. And I went to Gettysburg again, like I said, in Halloween night, and we were going around and doing a lot of things, and I wasn't a planned stop in this one direction. I said, you guys hang here. I want to go in here and look around. And it happened to be the graveyard. There's two graveyards there. It's National Cemetery where Abraham Lincoln did the Gettysburg Address and everything. It was getting late and it was about ready to close. But being a vet, I wanted to go in and say, a little prayer for everybody, because I could feel some of them hanging around, and they're hanging in grief. Tell you the truth, I felt like there was multiple ones standing around this circle, and it was cut like a pie, like you would slice a pie, an apple pie, or whatever kind of pie you want. And it was unknown soldiers from every war. It was a monument that they had there, and it was a circle that you could walk in and stand in the middle and kind of look all around. And it was just very profound moment, because you're thinking of all these soldiers who had given their last full measure of devotion for freedom and the things that they believed in, and for in the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, all the way through. I mean, it was amazing to stand there, and I could feel this pain and I could feel this anguish. And I said, I don't have a lot of time. I promise I'll come back tomorrow. And I'm saying this out loud like a Looney Tune. Right in the middle of, it's dark, it's autumn, leaves are falling. It was kind of beautiful. And I'm standing and I'm speaking in this circle, because I could feel them as I'm standing and speaking. I could feel it gathering more and more and more and more energy, but it was all the same angst and longing. I mean, so many of those feelings I could feel all on top of it. And I said, I don't know what to do to thank you. I can tell you that we're all here and we remember what you did. I said, the only thing I can do is just say a prayer for you and let you know that you're remembered. And I remember you. And I did the Lord's Prayer. First thing that come to the top of my head. And I saluted. And I walked off. And as I turned around, I looked down the sidewalk, and my sons were standing there looking at a map, trying to figure out where we're going next because we had all these things planned. And my oldest son, I see him kind of kick something with his toe, like the leaves. It was beautiful in Gettysburg, in Pennsylvania, Halloween. But all the leaves are blowing down the street. It was just gorgeous. And I see him kick something and pick something up and look at it, and then kind of look up at me where I was, and I'm walking towards him. And he's just standing there looking at something in his hand, and then he balls it up and he comes walking towards me. And I thought he picked up a rock because I always collect rocks from wherever I went. And I was thinking, I don't really want one from here because everything kind of belongs to them. So I'm not going to keep it. And that's what was in my head. And as I'm walking toward the gate, I feel a hand. Well, I don't want to say a hand. I felt something on my shoulder. And I thought it was the night guard or whoever it is that locks the gate, because I told you they're about ready to close. I turned around. There's nobody there. Nobody there. There wasn't a limb or anything else. It was just, and I stopped for a minute. I'm like, I got it. And we're leaving. We're good, And I didn't feel bad. It didn't feel bad. Startling, yeah, but it didn't feel the bad energy. It was just, okay, I'm gone. Okay, I'm going. So I go walk towards him, and he comes up to me and he goes, "This is for you." And I said, he holds out his hand. It wasn't open yet. He said, "This is for you." And I said, "Well, what is it? Is it a bug?" Because they're always, I said, "If it's a bug, I don't want it." And he said, "No," he said, "It said, this is for you." That's what he said to me. It said, this is for you. I said, okay, now I'm getting it, because he's got it too, even though he doesn't use it. He heard it. He goes like this, and he opens his hand and he shows it to me. And in his hand was this. You can see it. It was a silver cross crucifix. You see it? And as soon as I saw it, I knew. I had just done the Lord's Prayer. They were saying thank you. And I took it, and I stuck it in my medicine bag, and I kept it forever until I made the necklace it went on. Now shoot forward real fast. And this is in the book in more detail. I go to a energy thing where you try to, work on your skills, your abilities. And one of them, you're supposed to bring something in an envelope, seal it, and put it on the table and not tell anybody what it was. And I'd forgot, as usual, never do my homework. And I think, oh gosh, so I reached in my bag and I put it in, took this out, and put it in the envelope. And here comes my teacher. She goes, "I feel like I'm supposed to be with you." And I'm like, cool, I got the teacher. This is nice. She sits in front of me and she starts looking through the envelope. She closes her eyes and she says, "I'm seeing a uniform." Okay. I don't say anything. I don't move. "I'm seeing a uniform." She goes, "No, more than one uniform." She says, "It's not recent. We're going back." She said, and then she stops and she's real quiet. She goes, "You think I'm on the right track here?" And I'm like, "Could be." She goes, "Okay, I think I'm I thought I was going crazy." She goes, "Nope, that's it. It was a gift from Spirit to protect you." I'm like, what? And I said, ripped it open, and I told her the story. So there you go. Love lasts. They know. They understand.
Love never dies.
Love never dies. And I honestly believe it's the strongest energy out there. So that's what I wanted to tell you all tonight. Thank you, Steve, so much. Tell us again where
Absolutely.
we can find you. I love you all in the chat so much.
My books are on Amazon. The one that Cisco and I wrote together is called "We're All Children in the Wilderness of the Afterlife, a Guided Tour Through a Haunted Life." I've been practicing that, Cisco.
You got it, baby.
And then I have Strange Things in the Woods, which was originally 2 volumes. It was Strange Things in the Woods and More Strange Things in the Woods. When I went with the traditional publisher last year, they combined both those into 1 volume. Mm-hmm. And then I've got, and that's stories that I collected from other people. That's my crowning achievement right there. That's those stories live on longer than the people that told them, longer than me, longer than the people that hear them. I mean, those books are out there forever, hopefully.
Wonderful.
And then I've got My Strange World, which is stories, my own experiences. And then National Park Mysteries and Disappearances, Volume 1, the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. That just came out in April. I think it was April. And then Volume 2 of that, to California, which will cover Joshua Tree, Yosemite, and Mount Shasta will be out around the end of August.
Mm.
And YouTube wise, I'm on, of course, Missing Persons and Mysteries. That's the big channel. And then I also have 13 Past Midnight, which is just my little personal channel. I only have about 5,500 subs over there. I do my ghost stories at midnight and some other
Yeah.
stuff over there. I've got people here in this chat from both channels. So appreciate everybody
It's
coming
wonderful.
in. If
Yeah,
you
it's
haven't been to
wonderful.
either one, come and check me out.
Yep, wonderful.
And
And I'd
then,
like to say thank you to everybody. Jose, thanks for coming in. Grey Wolf Paranormal, great to see you. Pam Smith, everybody. Laura, pseudonym Kiwi, everybody. Uncommon Belief for coming in here tonight and making this chat wonderful and asking great questions and good commentary. And I'll tell you what, pseudonym and Uncommon Belief are some of the best mods you'll ever going to have because they're dropping links. They're keeping everything going. Check out those links and thank you guys so much for being here tonight. And Steve, we are going to do this once a week.
yeah,
I
okay,
think
that sounds great. I
sounds
look
good.
forward to it. Thank you for
You're
having
my
me here.
buddy and I love you. And I don't think either one of us would be doing what we're doing if Zariah hadn't put us together. So
Yeah,
thank you,
there's
Zariah
a
Ascap.
synergy there.
Mm-hmm.
And again, thanks to all my people that showed up and all your people that were here. Thanks to all of you. Subscribe if you're not already. Hit that like button. Helps us go out here.
Yep.
But everybody have a good night, a great day, good morning, whatever it is, wherever you are. I enjoyed being here with Cisco.
Thank you so much. And tune in. We're going to try for 8:00 on Saturday evening. We're going to have a pseudonym and Kiwi. We're going to talk a little bit about cyber attacks and some other great research that they've been doing. And I love you all so much. Thank you. Keep your feet under those covers and keep your closet doors shut because there are things that go bump in the night. Love you,
Indeed.
Steve. Love you,
too,
chat.
Cisco.
Good night,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye. See you soon.